Hi, everybody. I'm here with a dear friend and colleague, Sheri Mitschelen. She's an LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. She's also a registered play therapy supervisor. And she's started two programs, the Crossroads Counseling Center and also the Heartleaf Center, which is a nonprofit center working with children and families. Sheri has just been an incredible social worker for over 30 years. She specialized in play therapy. She was recognized as one of the best child therapists in the area by Washingtonian Magazine, and she's completely devoted. So I really want to hear what you have to say about compassion. Um, my first question to you is, what importance do you place on compassion and compassionate activity?
Well, as I knew we were doing this interview, I started kind of thinking about compassion, and I think that it's really been kind of the backbone of what I've done in my whole career. I really think of myself as a really empathic person, and looking at that empathy and how it's different than compassion. And but I've always grown up and have kind of lived my life with wanting to help serve others and help provide for people who are less fortunate with me. Part of that's some of our social work background and training, but also it's been also kind of the way I was raised and the way it's some of the principles that I have of my personal beliefs. But I really try to look at people's views and try to think of how would I feel if I were in their shoes. And so I really kind of go about life in that way and helping others, and then working with clients individually as well.
So your empathy is very strong. And I notice that difference between empathy and there are different kinds of empathy, cognitive or emotional, and then compassion, where you actually feel compelled to help. Um, and of course, it can be challenging to live that way, but incredibly fulfilling at the same time. Who were some of your influences and your early experiences that led you down this path?
I think definitely my parents and probably my dad, and stronger in that, and just that I always say that he is like a social worker without training. Always was wanting to help people, but my mom as well. Like they always were always wanting to help people, and we grew up Christian too, so some of our religious beliefs were part of that, and helping others that are less fortunate than you are. So that was definitely I think probably my parents and the church were a big part of that.
What are some of the activities that your compassion and your empathy have led you to enter into over the course of your career?
So I think, well, the biggest thing with, I think, starting with Crossroads Family Counseling Center, I knew that I wanted to help serve children and families, and that I couldn't do all the work myself. And so I started hiring on additional people and training them to work with children, to be work and play therapy. And my it just warms my heart to know that all these children are being served, and I didn't feel the burden of feeling like I had to do it all myself. And then with the Hartley Center, I really felt compassion towards those families that couldn't afford to pay for a private practice, or they had insurance and they couldn't find anybody in the area that we live in Northern Virginia that takes insurance. And then those families that just maybe have different cultural beliefs about mental health, or a lot of them I were seeing that they were coming into treatment later, and like they were more in crisis, and so wanting to help kind of help support those families and maybe getting into treatment faster to help support them. So I really believe in early intervention and wanting to help with that too. And I believe that the earlier you can help with a child's mental health, that might help prevent, later on, like more severe mental health issues, or, or even suicide and those kind of things. So really wanting to help families learn about mental health and how to get into access into treatment and as early as they can.
Well, research certainly bears out that early intervention is the way to go.
Yeah.
Um, you know, ounce of prevention, much better than a pound of cure. One of the people we were talking about earlier, Scarlett Lewis, who runs the Just Choose Love Foundation, named after her son, Jesse Lewis, who died at Sandy Hook. I heard her interviewed recently, and she said, all this stuff about violence prevention, why don't we start with the cause and prevent it early and prevent it,
Yeah.
by teaching kids how to love
Mhm.
compassion.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. Does compassion have a role? And if so, what role in the therapy you offer to the children and families that you're serving?
I think, yeah, compassion's a huge role. And, I always talk to, and I feel myself, to any of our new young clinicians and people we have graduate students and interns, especially having compassion with the parents, and that, parents are coming to us to look for resources and help. And it's easy to be judgmental of them and be like, well, why don't they just do it this way or that way? And oftentimes parents don't know what to do, or they don't have the tools, and we assume that they do. And so having compassion for them and that they're doing their best. And so how can we then work with their strengths and help then teach them or guide them in a gentle way, so that they can help their child? Because I think it's easy to, I always say that parents come to feeling like they're going to get the finger pointed at them, or they're the ones to blame. And so helping them to know that we're not blaming them and we're not judging them, that we're just really there to help and guide them, and that, they are the experts. So I think that compassion is really important, especially working with children and teenagers, because I always joke around that I love working with the kids, but they come with parents. And so, you have to work with that whole family system and help support them. And, and sometimes often it might be grandparents as well. It's multi generations that you're working with. And so helping all of them and teaching them what they can. So, and I think with kids, the compassion with the kids is just that it's a really difficult world they're growing up in, and it's way different than what, I grew up in. They're not getting, I think, some of the tools that they need, and there's a lot more stresses. They're exposed to a lot more things that they shouldn't be, that they don't understand cognitively and emotionally. And so really being compassionate to the way that they are growing up, that may be way different than I did or some of our other therapists did.
Which is, for me, what a safe place that would be for people. If you can stay out of judgment and just be with somebody, it has such a healing effect. So, as you do this work, what obstacles have you come across in terms of maintaining your empathy, your compassion, and how do you keep going day after day, year after year?
And
So I combined two questions.
so, I think that it's very hard work. I think part of it is really being aware of your own emotions and having a place to be able to talk about that with friends or colleagues, or therapy, your own therapist. But being aware of your own feelings. And so you're not, as a very empathic person, it's easy to absorb all those feelings around you. And so being able to identify what my feelings are and what others are, and not taking those feelings in, because it's very easy to do that. And it can be very helpful at times as a therapist to do that, but it's not good when you're taking it all home with you. I think finding ways to, do a lot of self-care, and, I have a lot of different, I love to read. I love to watch TV shows that are mindless, that I don't have to think. And then I love to do puzzles, yoga. I love that. And so I do a lot of things to kind of, that's freeing, and it's not, having to take care of others, and some self-care, because it's very easy when you're in this field to always wanting to be taking care of others and not taking care of yourself. And so I think I forgot the second part of your question.
Um, the first part of your answer is beautiful because I don't know if you've had a chance to look at some of the Compass modules, but it starts out there because if you're not de-stressing and getting your equilibrium every day, you're going to burn out.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and so that's absolutely essential. Um, the second part of the question is if there are ways that you found when you start to feel compassion fatigue or obstacles to maintaining, there are so many. Like you mentioned one, like when you get angry at a parent for doing something that's hurting their kid, or something like that. How do you handle those obstacles and day to day once you're calm again and once you drained out all the stress that you encountered in your work? How do you reboot your compassion and willingness to wade back in?
I think definitely I do a lot of consultation. Like I have a monthly consultation group with other therapists, and being able to talk with them about it and just get another perspective, or good colleagues that I can call and talk with. And sometimes, even maybe just writing or journaling about it, is really helpful because it gives you a different perspective. And being able, in play therapy, we have a technique called sand tray, which is a Jungian technique, which you can put symbols into the sand. And sometimes I've done that. I'll put it out, and it's just a really beautiful way to put something out on that's in your mind and your heart, and then step back and take a look at the visual piece of it. And that's really helpful as well.
So, do you have any strategies that you could share with the people who will watch this for just touching back into their empathy and their compassion and their sense of center? Or is that a big ask? If it's
Let me think. Um, I think sometimes, obviously compassion is really great, but I think sometimes when it gets too overwhelming, or you're feeling like you need to do too much, maybe then shifting a little bit to what can you do, or break it down, so it's not so overwhelming. And, having trusted people that you can talk to and look at things. I know I love to do a lot, and I sometimes get too big, and I have to step back and be like, okay, what can I personally control, and what can I do, versus doing way too much. So breaking it down, and it kind of goes to mindfulness. Like I know you talk about, it's like, what can I do right now today, or in this next month, or the next, breaking it down into chunks, because sometimes it gets definitely too overwhelming. But yeah, finding trusted people you can talk to, finding good practices of helping, because sometimes compassion can become fatiguing, and it feels too much and overwhelming at times too.
And I'm going to surprise you with one more question as a follow-up. Are there things that you found are rewarding from having a compassionate heart? Does it bring any kind of reward to you?
Absolutely. I think just being able to help like one person is just so rewarding. And it can be something really minor, and that's what's making me kind of get choked up. But yeah, it just, I think, just really fulfills your heart, and makes you feel good. And it's like, none of us are perfect, and we don't, I don't always do everything right, but and I am able to help just one person, or help others and teach others to help others. That just really warms my heart and gives me a lot of satisfaction, and then it fuels the energy to keep going forward to help others too.
That's my experience too. When you have one individual who is on the edge,
Mhm.
and you see them thriving, and you know that you had an impact in that, I can't think of anything more fulfilling.
Yeah, yeah, it's the best feeling in the world. Yeah.
Sheri, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights, and I rejoice in your work, even though I'm awed by it and I can't keep up. But I'm so glad that you're in the world and you're doing a thing.
Well, I appreciate too, and all that you're doing, and